Hello children, how are you doing? I'm sure you're loving all the new stories and poems that we are reading together. Children, do you like adventures full of twists and turns? I'm sure you do. बच्चों, आपको रोमांचक कहानियाँ तो ज़रूर पसंद होंगी जिसमें बहुत सारा एडवेंचर दिखाया जाता है. So let's read such a story, Valley of Gems. Sinbad was a famous sailor of Baghdad. He loved adventure. Often, he sailed on the sea for new adventures. Every time he reached new lands and met new people. He had faced many hardships and dangers during his voyages, but it could not prevent him from making new voyages and facing new adventures. बच्चों, सिंबाद एक बहुत ही फेमस सेलर था बगदाद से और उसे एडवेंचर बहुत ही पसंद था. जितनी भी मुश्किलें आती, जितने भी हार्डशिप्स आते, डेंजर्स आते, तब भी वह रुक नहीं पाता था और नए वॉयजेस पे, नए एडवेंचर्स पर चला ही जाता था. तो यहाँ पे हमने एक नया शब्द सीखा, हार्डशिप्स यानी डिफ़िकल्टीज. Once he laden his ship with precious goods and set out for a new voyage. It was only his second voyage. The sea was calm and a favorable wind was blowing. Everybody on board was happy. They were talking of the new land they would discover this time. सब कुछ अच्छा चल रहा था. सिंबाद का सेकेंड वॉयज था और हवा भी बिल्कुल धीमी गति से चल रही थी. सब कुछ ठीक था. On the 18th day, suddenly the sky became dark. A strong wind blew and the sea became restless. Soon a storm arose that drifted their ship to an unknown direction. The ship moved on and on for several days and at last it reached an unknown island. जब 18th डे हुआ, 18वां दिन आया, तो जो आराम से जो विंड बह रही थी, चल रही थी, वो बदल गई. अब एक स्टॉर्म आ गया, एक तूफान आ गया और जिसने शिप को मूव कर दिया एक बहुत ही अलग दिशा में, एक अलग अननोन लैंड पे, एक अननोन आइलैंड पे. सो ड्रिफ्टेड हियर मीन्स टू मूव. As soon as they landed on the island, the sailors became busy searching for food and water. But Sinbad sat under a tall tree and soon fell asleep. He woke up after a long time and looked around for his companions. But nobody could be seen and the ship was also not there. जब वो साइलैंड पे पहुंचे, सब खाना और पानी ढूंढने लगे. सिंबाद तो पेड़ के नीचे सो गया था और जब उसकी आंख खुली तो कोई भी नहीं था वहाँ पर. सब कंपेनियंस जा चुके थे और सिंबाद अकेले रह गया था. Sinbad realized that his friends had left him alone in the island. He climbed upon a tree and tried to find out the ship, but in vain. Ship चला गया था. Suddenly, he saw a huge dome-like structure shining brightly at some distance. Dome-like structure here, children, it means गुंबद जैसे आकार वाला, ऊपर से गोल. At once he got down from the tree and reached near it. It was so huge, round and smooth that he couldn't make out what it was. सिंबाद ये पता ही नहीं लगा पाया कि वो शाइनी गोल स्ट्रक्चर क्या है. When he had been thinking what it could be, the sky became dark. Sinbad looked up. He saw a very big bird. It had covered the sun. Soon the bird came down and sat on the white object. Sinbad now realized that the huge bird was a rock and the round object was its egg. Sinbad had already heard about this bird from his ancestors. Here ancestors means पूर्वज, जो उसकी जनरेशन, पहली जनरेशन के लोग थे, उनको बोलते हैं ancestors. सो सिंबाद ने ये पता लगाया, ये रियलाइज़ किया कि वो बड़ा स्ट्रक्चर तो एक एग था और वो इस बर्ड का जिसका नाम था रॉक, जिसके बारे में उसने अपने पूर्वजों से सुना था. The legs of the rock were huge like the trunk of a tree. Sinbad thought for a moment and then took off his turban. Children, turban here means पगड़ी. तो सिंबाद ने अपनी पगड़ी उतार दी. Turban. He tied himself to the bird's leg with the hope that the bird would carry him to some safer place. अब सिंबाद ने अपनी सूझबूझ का इस्तेमाल किया और अपनी पगड़ी की सहायता से वो बड़ी सी बर्ड की लेग में अपने आप को बांध दिया. The bird sat on its egg throughout the night. Early next morning, it flew with Sinbad tied to its leg. The bird flew for many hours and then suddenly it swooped down to a deep valley. सारी रात वो बर्ड अपने एग पर बैठी रही, अपने अंडे पर बैठी रही उसे सेकने के लिए, और काफ़ी घंटों बाद जब वो नीचे की तरफ आई, मतलब स्वूप, तो वो एक वैली में पहुंच गई. The valley was full of large snakes. As soon as the bird landed, Sinbad untied himself and slipped away. It caught a big snake in its beak and flew away. जैसे ही वो वैली में पहुंचे, जल्दी से सिंबाद ने वो पगड़ी का कपड़ा खोला और वहाँ से निकल भागा. बर्ड ने भी एक बड़ा सा सांप, बड़ा सा स्नेक अपनी चोंच में पकड़ा और वहाँ से चली गई. The snakes had already disappeared for fear of the bird. Sinbad looked around. It was a deep valley surrounded by high mountains from all sides. सिंबाद ने देखा कि बाकी सांप बड़ी सी चिड़िया रॉक के डर से पहले ही भाग चुके थे. अब वो जहाँ पहुँचा था वो एक जगह थी ऐसी जिसके आसपास थे बड़े बड़े पहाड़. As he looked around, his eyes fell on the big gems scattered all around. जैसे ही उसकी नज़र पड़ी, उसने देखा बहुत सारे हीरे जवाहरात वहाँ पे रखे हुए हैं, फैले हुए हैं. The word is scattered all around, which means फैला हुआ होना. Scattered. He realized that he had reached the valley of diamonds, about which he had heard a lot. Sinbad filled all his pockets with precious gems and then began to think of going out of the valley. उसने रियलाइज़ किया कि वो एक ऐसी जगह पहुंच गया था जहां डायमंड्स थे, वैली ऑफ डायमंड्स. इसके बारे में उसने पहले ही सुना था और पढ़ा था, तो उसने अपनी पॉकेट्स भर ली उन डायमंड से. Suddenly, he saw large pieces of flesh dropping into the valley. At first, he couldn't understand the reason, but soon he saw some people on the mountains. They were dropping the chunks so that the gems would get stuck to the flesh, and whenever the bird comes and picks up the chunks, the gems would also come out with the flesh. Then they would collect the gems from the bird's nest. तो उसने देखा केवल वह ये चाह नहीं रहा था कि सारे डायमंड्स उसी के पास आ जाए. वहाँ पर बहुत सारे लोग थे जो फ्लैश के टुकड़े, मीट के टुकड़े वहाँ फेंक रहे थे ताकि जेम्स उनसे चिपक जाए और बाद में वो बर्ड्स उन्हें आकर ले ले और इवेंचुअली वो सब उन्हें मिल जाए. Sinbad thought that it was his only way to get out. He tied a big chunk of flesh on his back, lay flat on the ground and waited for the bird to return. तो सिंबाद ने क्या किया, एक बड़ा सा चंक फ्लैश का, मीट का अपनी बैक पर बांध दिया, क्योंकि उसने प्लान कर लिया था अब एक बर्ड आएगी और उसे वहाँ से ले जाएगी. So the bird returned after some time. It swooped down and picked him up along with the chunk of flesh. अब बर्ड आई और फ्लैश के लालच में उसे उठा लिया. Swoop down here means it's like a flight when you come down. जब एक बर्ड नीचे की तरह आती है उसे बोलते हैं swoop down. जैसा सिंबाद ने प्लान किया था वैसा ही हुआ. The next moment it was flying back to its nest on the mountain and with him was Sinbad. The bird reached its nest and dropped the chunk. Sinbad also fell on the ground with a thud, but luckily he was not injured. जैसे उसने प्लान किया था वैसा हुआ। बर्ड आई, उसने फ्लैश के पीस को उठाया जिससे सिंदबाद बंधा हुआ था और फ्लैश के साथ सिंदबाद को भी वहां से निकाल कर ले गई। Soon he heard the bangs of crackers. Some people were bursting crackers to scare the bird away. As soon as the bird flew away in panic, the people came running. थोड़ी ही देर में उसने पटाखों की आवाज़ सुनी क्योंकि कुछ लोग वो पटाखे चला रहे थे उस बर्ड को डराने के लिए। अब बर्ड बहुत ही घबरा गई, पैनिक हो गई, तो वो लोग दौड़ते भागते आए। They were confused when they saw Sinbad tied to the flesh. Sinbad told them his story and gave a diamond to each of them. They were very delighted to get the gifts. They took Sinbad to their ship and on their way back dropped him on a harbor. Children, harbor here means a place where ships are kept at the shore so that they can go to different places. Harbor. Sinbad hired another ship from there and reached home. So this is how the adventure of Sinbad finished, where he was rescued because of his wit, his presence of mind and his wisdom. So children, this was the adventure of the brave Sinbad. I hope you are also excited about such an adventure after reading this story. Do read it again and attempt the book exercises.